Hey everybody, welcome back to Fix the Rust Bucket. We're going to go ahead and take advantage of the engine being out of the car and get some of these gaskets replaced. They're a lot more difficult to replace and clean up while it's inside the car. This is the back side of the motor that's up against the firewall, which makes it very difficult to reach back down in here and get it. In this video, we're going to go ahead and cover the valve cover gaskets, how to properly, remove everything, clean it up, and install the new gaskets. All right, so now to get into removing your coil pack rail to get access to your valve cover and actually start doing that. There's 2, 3, 4, 5. They look like bolts, nuts and bolts, but they're actually just a stud with a 10mm bolt on it. There's a hose back here on the rear of your valve cover. Just pull the hose off, get that out of the way. Take a deep socket, 10mm because of the stud. Loosen them up. Pull off spark plugs, wires. And then you can go ahead and take these out and remove your coil pack rail. Put that off to the side for now. Now we're getting to the valve cover. Remove the valve cover. Pretty simple. 4 bolts, 8mm. And the gasket, we'll show you, goes around the outside, and those rubber grommets are what seal up these bolt holes. Rubber grommets might stick a little bit. If they do, once you have the bolt loose, just go ahead and pull up, give it a wiggle, and it'll pull right out. With that, your valve cover is loose, and you can go ahead and pull the valve cover out and off. All right, so I'm going to start off with where your gasket and valve cover meet the head on your head here. Just going to go ahead and wipe off any oil and loose residue that I can with a rag, and that'll expose anything that we're going to need to remove with the razor blade and the Scotch-Brite pad. You're going to want to get this cleaned back up. You don't want to scratch it. You have to be careful. You don't want to mar any of the surfaces here because it could cause your gasket to leak. So don't use screwdrivers or any kind of hard utensil scraping tool. A razor blade will work fine, and a Scotch-Brite pad most of the time takes everything off. Sometimes there's pieces of gasket left over and residue. Wipe it down. Get as much as we can off with the rag. And then we'll move on to the razor blade and Scotch-Brite pad. Take the razor blade, lay it pretty flat. You can just run it across, and it's going to scratch out the heavy parts of what was leaking. When it starts leaking, like this one was, the oil is going to come in here and cake up, causing all kinds of residue and nastiness laying on top of there. The razor blade just scrapes that down loose. Just keep your razor blade flat so you don't put any gouges in this surface again. I've scraped around, got most of the heavy stuff off and out of the way with the razor blade and the rag. I'm going to take my little Scotch-Brite pad or it's a scrubby pad, but soft pad. I'm going to go ahead and start cleaning up what we can with that. Again, nothing that can scratch or cause a gouge inside the surface here, which will end up causing a leak down the road on your engine valve cover gasket. You don't need to bring it to a polish shine. You just have to get the old residue off. What you're doing is getting the old gasket and burned up oil off of the surface here to make a clean seal for your new gasket to seat. This pretty much goes for any engine and any valve cover gasket that you do. They're all pretty much the same. There's no difference. Might be a different bolt pattern, taking them on and off. Might look a little different. Some gaskets are rubber, some gaskets are cork. These happen to be rubber gaskets, but to do the valve cover itself on any engine is pretty much the same process. Getting it removed, cleaning it up. So, I think we're done. And wipe out little excess stuff we have. A little residue, but not much. I'm happy with that. Let's just see. It said it's not a polished shine, but it's clean. And that's what you want. These lines you're seeing here, you're not going to get them out. Well, here, get a better angle. Those lines you're seeing right up here, they're not going to come out. They're not really, it's a smooth surface. They're just a stain on the aluminum from where the gasket sits. But pretty much it's good to go. And we'll go ahead and start working on the valve cover. All right, so went ahead and just wiped down the top of valve cover, get the old oil and dust and dirt off of it, and now we'll get to the business side of the valve cover and the gasket. The old gasket runs inside of a channel around this motor. Get it out, just take your fingers, pick it out, pull it up and out, throw that in the trash. Now with this, you're not going to be able to use a razor blade to get inside that channel and get this cleaned out. I'll show you. You're not going to be able to use a razor blade to get inside that channel and clean it out. So we're going to start off with using a rag and wipe off as much excess and heavy residue off. And then we'll get into anything that might be left over with a Scotch-Brite pad. All the oil, old oil that was inside there where it was leaking out. Got the loose stuff off, and we're going to take a Scotch-Brite pad, get inside there, and just lightly go around the whole channel till we get it cleaned up. Again, not a polished finish, just a cleaned up finish. So when you seat your new gasket in there, it has a clean housing area, seated area, to seal up the valve cover again. I'm just going to start off with a little small piece of Scotch pad, soft scrub type pads. Squish it down so I can get it in the channel. And just like on the head where the valve cover sat, start working your way around. Here you go. So there's your old, let's get to the right spot here. There's your old channel, the crud in it. This is where we just cleaned. That's what you're looking for right there. It's a clean surface for the gasket. This is a rubber gasket to sit inside there and seal correctly. All right, so let me get back to doing the rest. So it didn't take long. It's all cleaned out. Take a look around, make sure in the channel there's not anything large still stuck inside there, which that just did. I have an air compressor, so I'm just going to go ahead and go over to my air compressor and blow this channel out, get any of the residue from the scrub pads out of there. If you don't have an air compressor, just get yourself a rag, napkin or rag, and wipe it out. Tap it out a few times and you'll get all that stuff out of there. So let me go knock this out with the air compressor. I have that taken care of. I'm gonna wipe down. So I did already also, when I cleaned the top of this, just wiped out inside where the rubber grommet goes, where the mounting bolts hold your valve cover down. They weren't too bad. There was nothing stuck on there. If there's anything stuck on there again, just take one of your pads, clean it up, wipe it down. Those were pretty clean on this one, so I didn't have to worry about that. Inside's clean now. I'm going to go ahead and take a rag, just clean off the inside of these holes right here, and then we'll be ready to put the new gasket on and reinstall. Again, just tap it out, any loose parts, valve cover's ready to go. And we're going to move on to just wiping down the bolts, get them cleaned up. We'll install the new rubber grommets to go in there, and then we'll come back and put the gasket in and reinstall on the engine. All right, so picked up my 4 new rubber gaskets. Just slip over top of these bolts. I'm just going to go ahead and wipe off the oil residue that's on it. There's really no cleaning that I'm going to do with these. Just wiping off the loose leftover stuff from inside. Probably wipe them once more once we get the gaskets or the rubber grommet gasket off of there, and get ready to install the 4 new ones. Actually, so this kit is a Felpro gasket kit from my local parts store, or I get on my favorite online store that I go to. So the gasket itself, for the valve cover and for these, you can get in one kit for both sides. So let's go ahead and remove the rubber gaskets. To remove these rubber gaskets, pretty simple. Just take, and you're going to pull it off. It's going to go around that seated piece of metal on the bottom, and then the next ones will just push back on. So just take it, shove it off. I was just looking to show you. There's actually a gouge in that gasket right there. So that was one point of leaking on this. Just pull them apart. Yeah, easier said than done. There we go. So as you can see, it's slipping over that metal piece on the end there. You can focus. We'll just pull all 4 of them off. Throw the old ones in the trash so they're out of the way. Wipe these clean. I'll show you right here how to install the valve cover gasket back onto your valve cover. So on the gasket itself, you have a fat spot. You can see right here where it's thicker on the bottom, thinner up here. That right there is the channel where it's going to go into your channel of the valve cover. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's little tiny bumps throughout the whole gasket. They're there just to make it so it doesn't fall out of your valve cover when you go and flip it upside down and put it onto your back onto your head. So let's get this laid out, show you here. So you can see also, so get this here, valve cover has these 3 curves in it. The other side is straight. Just look on this, they're preformed, has your 3, and then the other side is straight. So to install, just putting it back in. Remember, your channel's all cleaned out. Start with the preformed. I start with the preformed bends, and then it'll line up on the ends and around the rest of the way correctly. And just lightly push it back into place. All right, so it's seated all the way around. Now we can move back to the engine, put that and these 4 bolts back on. Valve cover, your 3 curves there, 3 curves there. That's it. Flip it over, lay it down on top. Get your bolts. Take the rubber grommet piece, your finger on the center shaft, push that rubber grommet in, and it'll sit there like that. Doesn't take a lot of pressure, just a little bit. Once your grommets are seated, you'll know they're seated because they just snap into place. Then you can take your bolt. It's gonna be loose. You have to find that hole that I just showed you, that silver part inside there. You have to find that hole to get them in there. Don't use a wrench right away tightening these up. Use your fingers, find that hole, and get them started so you don't cross-thread them. An old timer taught me a trick. And once you find where it's got to go, so now it's sitting on top. I know it landed on top of there. An old timer taught me a trick. Take the bolt and turn it as if you're loosening it. And see if I can get you to hear this click. I don't know if you heard that click or not. When you hear that click, the threads on the bolt and where the threads are going to go in are now in the correct position to not get cross-threaded. Now you can go ahead and snug it down with your fingers. All right, they're as tight as I'm going to get with my fingers. to take, oh, where'd it go? My 8mm socket. I have a bigger extension on the end to fit my torque wrench. Just going to hand tighten these down. Just snug them up. All right, so now that we have them snugged up inside around the valve cover, you get your torque wrench out, and we're going to torque these down. I'm going to start from the inside and then go to the outside bolts. The specs that I found that call for this is 8 foot-pound torque on those. So just go ahead and set your torque wrench to 8 foot-pounds and snug them up. You'll hear on your torque wrench, you'll hear it snap or pop right there. And that's when you know that the torque has been set. Listen again. Right there. Right there. This valve cover is complete.